today. As the car's going through inspection still. One of those, the 88s. In inspection, Earnhardt Jr. still on the windshield, but it's going to be Jeff Gordon who will be driving once again this weekend for the concussion-like symptoms that Dale Earnhardt Jr. was feeling a couple weeks back. Not able to run the last two races. And so Jeff Gordon once again behind the wheel for the ailing Dale Earnhardt Jr. And again, inspection is taking a little bit longer than what I'm sure NASCAR and any of the teams were expecting. And so it's going to be a little bit longer that they will be going through inspection. So we'll be able to talk about a few more things that are taking place here at the racetrack. Rick Allen alongside Jeff Burton, Steve Letarte. Starting up front, always critical, especially when you come to Pocono. Why?
Well, no question. No, we saw it last week in Indianapolis. We saw it the week before. And New Hampshire, track position matters. If you don't have to push as hard on restarts, that makes life easier. It helps you with your strategy. There's a lot of things that track position kind of eases things up on. You know, imagine if you restart this race and you start the race at 20th. The sense of urgency, the things you got to make happen to get toward the front is way different than if you start 6th. So, in my opinion, on this racetrack, qualifying without a doubt matters.
Yeah, even though it's a 400-mile race, and that's a long race for sure, think of it like a chess game. And if it was a chess game, if you start inside the top 10, you almost start 2 moves ahead of your competition. You don't have to have that first courageous pit strategy move to get track position because you're starting with it. So the whole idea of these guys here for qualifying is to qualify well. Qualify in the top 10. You don't have to sit on the pole. Top 10, top 12, kind of separate yourself from the pack. That will allow your crew chief, your team, everyone to start a little more relaxed and be less aggressive.
And you don't have to sit on the pole, but you sure want to sit on the pole. You know, everything's a race, and you want bragging rights. You want to be the pole sitter of this race. I mean, that's what today is all about, is winning that race for the pole. So, you know, it's not a necessity to win this race, but it's a necessity for your pride and for moving forward as a team.
And you mentioned bragging rights. I'm guessing the bragging rights went to Paul Menard for the first practice session, as Danny Stockman now as far as his crew chief from here on out. And Danny Stockman, they focused on qualifying, and they went out there and proved that they can find speed.
They did. And that, I think, will help the driver's confidence. We heard about that in practice. Marty Snyder was saying that was Danny Stockman's plan, to build some confidence with his driver. But the only issue now is backing up that great practice run. While they did it in practice, and it was impressive, and it was run after run. It wasn't just one good lap. Now they have to go out here in group qualifying, remember. Put up a good run, top 24 run, but then that second round, that's when the pressure mounts for this 2017. Can they transfer to the final round in the top 12?
And two guys that struggled a little bit, which was surprising because they're the two guys who have won the last 2 races here, Kurt Busch and Matt Kenseth. They couldn't find speed in that first practice.
Yeah, it really surprised me. You know, Kurt Busch did win this race in the spring, and I really thought coming here that he was going to be a favorite to win the race, and he may still be. It may just be they don't have speed in qualifying, but I really expected that team in particular to come here with speed. And then Matt Kenseth, we saw this same thing last week at Indy. They did not qualify well at Indy. They were the slowest car of the Joe Gibbs cars. He did not qualify well, but they ran their way to the front. So at a place where everybody was having trouble passing, we saw the 20 and Matt Kenseth. They were able to pass and get themselves up for the front.
So those two drivers with Kurt Busch and Matt Kenseth, they're fine in the chase standings, but because they've got wins. But there are guys that we really need to focus on here that are close to that cut line, especially Kyle Larson, Casey Kane, Dale Earnhardt Jr., who's not here. A big topic.
Yeah, well, let's take Kyle Larson, for example. Last week in Indianapolis, they didn't do anything spectacular, but they didn't do everything poor. They qualified well. They ran an efficient race. They ran up front, and they gained points. Now, 10 points above the cut line. So look just below the cut line at Casey Kane. This is the type of track we've seen him win on in the past. If they could have a good qualifying run, maybe build a little momentum, or just take some pressure off, keep that track position all day, they can maybe find those 10 points they need to get above the cut line.
And I mentioned earlier that inspection was going a little bit longer than what was expected. Let's hear from Scott Miller of NASCAR. He's with Mike Massaro.
And Rick, the good news is all these cars have gotten through inspection at least once. The bad news is many of them failed in that first go-through inspection. Scott Miller with us right now. Give me your assessment of what's going on.
We're going to extend the start time for qualifying by about 20 minutes or so. We had a little bit of a glitch this morning at the opening of inspection with our laser platform. We got it rectified quickly. Thought we'd be able to make up the time, but teams are struggling through templates as well. So because we had a little ownership in the LIS getting started late, we're gonna delay the start of qualifying.
It seems like there's a variety of issues that teams are failing with today. Why do you think that is?
They're seeing how much they can get away with. It's the same as this has been for a long time.
And with that, things are being extremely tight right now, Rick. As Scott said, we're going to start a little bit late, but we will get underway with the full field of cars.
Trying to get away with stuff. Well, there's always a gray area, and a crew chief and a team always wants to find that edge.
Yeah, let's start with what Scott had to say. The LIS, the Laser Inspection Platform, basically measures the toe, the camber, a bunch of chassis settings. It measures a lot of different parameters within the race car. So you heard that they had an issue with it this morning, and they felt like they lost some time. That's really why NASCAR is giving the time back, because if all these teams had ample amount of time this morning and had trouble, they wouldn't extend it. But it sounds to me that NASCAR felt they had a little issue. But there's no surprise, Rick and Jeff, that they're having issues everywhere else. It's a big 2.5-mile speedway. Every advantage counts.
Yeah, and aerodynamics make a huge difference. So, in regard to templates and those kind of things, the teams are going to constantly be pushing NASCAR to find out what the limit is. And honestly, if you don't push, you're not doing your job. If you go through tech every week and not have some sort of pre-qualifying, pre-practice, pre-race tech issue, nothing major, but something small, you're probably not pushing as hard as you need to, because, it's like when you're a kid. If you don't push the limit a little bit, your parents don't tell you you're doing something wrong, you don't really know it. So these guys, and also remember, they're prepping for the chase. So you're going to push a little bit harder to find out what you think NASCAR is going to let you do. And these things you can't write a rule for everything, right? I mean, you can't just write a rule that says this for that. There's so many components, so many pieces. So these teams constantly, this year, last year, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, we're pushing the rules, and it'll be happening 20 years from now.
I like that you looked at me when you said, as kids, you try to push the edge.
Well, Steve was so well behaved.
Of course he was.
He did.
One driver who definitely will be a threat for the pole is Joey Logano. He's with Parker Kligerman.
Joey, you were 7th in first practice. Do you have the speed to back it up in qualifying?
I think we do, actually. I think we're better than what we were in practice, which is good. And usually qualifying, you always find a little bit more, whether it's in the car or in yourself. Usually can add up a little bit more. So I'm happy with the speed in the Shell Penzo Ford. It unloaded pretty quick, and then we went to qualifying trim, the speed transferred over. So I'm excited for see what we got here in a few minutes.
And actually, qualifying has obviously been pushed back. Does that upset you in any way or move some of your strategy here, knowing it's been pushed back to some cars that didn't get through tech or kind of holding you guys up?
It doesn't really change much for us. We're just going to go out there and hammer down either way. So, we'll get out there and get a clean hold when we can. Obviously there's some clouds coming over and stuff like that. So that game may be played a little bit by everybody. But for the most part, it's going to be get out there, get through the rounds, and hopefully beat in the third one and go for the pole.
Sounds good. Joey Logano making a run at the pole.
Thank you, Parker. And we will hear from more of the drivers before they climb into their cars for the first round of qualifying from Pocono. We return.